President, well, here we are again, NDIS Monday. It's like the never-ending story, because I think we're 13 or 14 months now, and poor Senator Farrell gets sent in every week to deliver a statement that is quite simply an insult to this chamber. We've just had motions about respecting the institution. Well, and then they turn around with complete disdain for the Senate, because it is now 13 or 14 months since they have been required, the government has been required to provide this documentation to the Senate. And yet again, that documentation is not being provided. But this is on top. You know, remember when the now Prime Minister, when he was campaigning, he was going to be all about transparency, was all going to be open government, it was doing things differently. Instead, this is the most opaque administration I think we've ever seen. Their consistent refusal to provide documents in this place that the Senate has demanded from them, but that is now being backed up by the behaviour we've just recently seen at estimates, that we're seeing through the way that they are conducting legislation committees through each of the committee processes, and they're shutting down of any inquiry, limiting the number of hearings. We know what happened with the NDIS and the reforms and the way that they were trying to be pushed through, so much that we saw billboards being driven around, but then, lo and behold, the government themselves had something like 50+ amendments that they wanted to push through, stuff that we would have been able to get to the bottom of had we been actually required or able to have a proper inquiry and series of hearings. We now see at estimates that all of a sudden the agency is not available, that no one can attend, that conveniently everyone seems to get sick on the day of estimates, or that somehow or other estimates are in the diary almost 12 months out, but every single time the NDIA has scheduled a board meeting or some form of report to be released within a week of estimates being concluded. It is the ongoing situation that we are seeing from this government, that they are hiding every piece of data that they can, not only from participants but also the providers and everyone that works in this sector. But what we do know is that we're still seeing an increase in the costs of the NDIS. Now, I'm getting hundreds, if not thousands, of people coming by my office, and particularly, as most people know, I have a very strong interest in the autism sphere and the early intervention sphere, because I know if you get good quality intensive early intervention, you can change the trajectory of a child's life with autism. And in particular, this is actually a disability that reflects the intent of the scheme. Invest early, lower costs later. But we know that families are having their plans slashed, particularly for children with level 3 autism and an intellectual disability. I would personally love, maybe if some of these documents could be provided, I would actually love to work with the government, because there are too many kids on the scheme. We do not have 11% of kids with a disability, 7 to 9-year-old boys in this country. They do not have permanent and lifelong disability. I would love to work constructively with the government on how we get some of these kids off the NDIS, because for the people that need it, we need that scheme to be there. We need the scheme to be sustainable. We need it to be affordable. We need it to have the support of the broader Australian population, because the NDIS is there for everybody. Nobody knows whether they're going to need it through the birth of a child or via an accident. So we need the Australian population to be behind it. Instead, all we hear is these stories being put out, particularly with regards to participants being at fault. There's very little discussion about the providers that are rorting the system, the price guide that pushes up the cost of each therapy session for an NDIS participant higher than anyone else with a healthcare card or a veterans card. NDIS pays best. I would love to work with the government to see how we can get some of these kids who have a global developmental delay, some kids who need 1 or 2 speech therapy sessions, or maybe a couple of blocks of speech therapy session, how the states could better provide, like they used to, community health speech therapy, community help occupational therapy. But because the government is continually refusing to release these agreements with the states, and the states are saying, please don't bring on these foundational supports yet because we're not ready, and that we know that there are kids that are going to fall through the cracks and kids that shouldn't be on the NDIS that are going to fall through the cracks. But more frighteningly, it looks like, and it would appear likely, and I know that the minister has visited 2 early intervention centres. One I was supposed to go with him but was ill and he went without me, but one I took him to in Melbourne myself to show him level 3 kids with intellectual disability who require substantial plans to get that effective early intervention, but they are having their plans cut, dragged through the AAT process, only to have the original amount agreed to on the steps wasting more money through administration and legal costs.